Gonna just be these different locations we do this from. All right, welcome to the Storm Postgame Report. Rowan Schaberg, Charles Hamaker. I am at Lumen Field.
And I am at
Rowan,
Climate Pledge Arena.
is it Climate Pledge Arena? Unsure if Christian's gonna join us. It's a little bit later for his time zone. Um, and Rowan was on site for us today. So, um, goodness, kind of a thriller there towards the end. Seemed like Seattle kind of had control of this game coming out of the third quarter. I believe they had that nice little run, and Phoenix just was not ready to go away. Um, I think you had a tweet, Rowan. It was like, okay, Seattle's built this little 5 point lead, and then it's, oh, never mind. Seattle has not built this 5 point lead, and Phoenix has cut it
I got a
down.
little bit of backlash on that from someone, but I just was pointing out the facts. I wasn't being shady.
Oh, yeah, no,
There goes Gabby
that's
Williams.
just fact. See, this is
She's
what
walking in
like
front
the
of me.
post game report will do. Is ask her if she'll come on the show.
She's already gone.
Yeah, Christian will be joining us here in a second. Now I'm invested. I want to see someone. Oh, yeah, I know who that is. All right. Um, so we'll get Christian on here in a second, but um, no, I mean, thrilling win. I was kind of curious how Seattle was going to bounce back. Um, Weird to say this, but bounce back from kind of an ugly win in Dallas, right? And then how they would handle this Mercury team that they just really didn't seem to have answers for. Um, and they well coach team, right? Going to come out and play the game defensively, and they had some. I mean, they only allowed Phoenix to get 9 points in the fourth. So, Rowan, we'll get Christian in here in a second, but just since you were there, what did you see from this one? I know we're just quite literally minutes from the press conference, but what do you take away from this one in Seattle?
Yeah, I mean, I thought overall it was a positive, especially after they, like as you said, had a really rough time against the same exact team just what a week ago. I asked Noah Quinn in the pregame, what is it? Do you have an advantage seeing this team three times? They see Phoenix again, I believe, in the next month. So, what are the advantages of seeing the same team? And I thought that she did a really good job of taking advantage of that. I was keeping a tally and then I got a little distracted, but at least in the first quarter, there were five or six different lineups that we saw. And especially after the game on against Dallas, when we didn't see Zaya Cook or Lexi Brown, Dominique Malonga only had 1 minute in that game. I definitely think that game, I was like, so, kind of what's going on? What are we like, how are we getting to a place of knowing what rotation is going to work throughout the season? So I was really impressed with the way that Noelle Quinn did her lineups tonight. And I thought that we saw a lot of different lineups. And then by the end, it kind of felt like she was like, okay, we figured it out. And so I'm just glad that she took that opportunity to kind of see who played well together. And that unit ended up being the lineup ended up being Skylar, Erica Wheeler, essentially the starting lineup the starting lineup, but instead of Alicia Clark, we saw Erica Wheeler most of the game, and I thought that that was really interesting. Again, we've talked about the money side, the more behind the scenes side of the lineups that a lot of fans that are just watching don't see, where I think, Erica Wheeler got, let me refer back to my minutes here. Um, Erica Wheeler got 22 minutes, thank you, while Alicia Clark got 12. So it's just interesting to kind of see that. Is that going to be a change that happens? Does Erica Wheeler move into the starting spot? But then are you paying Alicia Clark, a really hefty price to be on the bench? Anyway, I thought that was the thing that stood out to me the most is that they were actually really using this game to understand the lineups that were going to be coming. I will say I was disappointed to only see Dominique Malonga for 5 minutes. And the reason why I think a lot of people were upset about the Dallas game, as was I. 1 minute is not a lot. But Noelle Quinn also has said a lot with a lot of different players. And she said this in the pregame today that Dominique came late. She has not had a lot of reps, which I understand, but I think the part where it was disappointing for me today was that in her 5 minutes on the floor, I thought she played really, really well. She played defense on Alyssa Thomas amazingly well for someone who, is 19 and, this is her first game. I thought that that was really impressive. So I definitely would have liked to see her a little bit more. There were times when Nneka Ogwumike struggled against Alyssa Thomas on defense, and I honestly thought that in the little that we did see of Malonga, I thought she did really well. Um, yeah, mostly just rotation things. Really impressive games from Nneka Ogwumike, Skylar Diggins both had 24. Skylar Diggins had a double-double, tied the franchise record. They really showed how they are the big two right now for Seattle. I know we have the big four, but they really did show leading this team. And they did it all for not they didn't do it all, but they did a really them both being on was a very big reason for the win today.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can definitely argue that they both essentially did it all. I mean, Nneka with 24 and 8 in this one continues to climb up like stack on the milestones. It feels like every game this year so far has been like Skylar Diggins or Nneka Ogwumike from the PR account is tweeting that they've passed someone on the top 10 list. Um, yeah,
Yes,
Skylar.
Ogwumike also passed someone I believe in defensive rebounds. She's now in the top.
Oh,
She moved up a spot in the top 10. So again, lots of records being broken, but yes, continue.
yeah, absolutely. No, it's pretty remarkable, and I know our guy Christian's working on a piece about something. Nneka recorded 15 points for the 246th time in her career, passing Cappy Pondexter for the fifth most such games. Um, she passed the one you're talking about, Rebecca Brunson, for the eighth on the all-time defensive rebounds list with 2,191. So, um, yeah, and then to tie up a loose end. You mentioned playing Phoenix again. They do. They play Phoenix again in 2 weeks. In Phoenix. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, it is interesting to kind of see the way that this WNBA has slated this 44 game schedule for everybody. But obviously, we're talking about the Storm here. Yeah, it is. I know that the Alicia Clark minutes in the past two games have already been a topic of discussion for Seattle, but the lack thereof in this game. I mean, 13, she goes 0 for 3 from the field, misses two three-pointers.
I mean, I think it's also of note, with those rotations, I was again in the first quarter impressed to see. I believe that everyone who played got in the first quarter. So again, I was impressed just because we've seen, especially even against Dallas, we've seen Noel maybe not do the like trying out different rotations the way that maybe other people would. So it was interesting to see in that first quarter she tried all these different things. And so I was maybe naively thinking, oh, we're seeing Lexi Brown this early. We're going to see her a lot more. I do think it's notable. I have not been on the past two post game shows that we've done. Now we have someone else here. I have not been on the past two, but something that has been really interesting to me is against Phoenix the first time, Lexi Brown had, I believe, 1 minute. Oh no, she had 10 minutes. She did have 10 minutes, but then immediately after that, did not play against Dallas, 1 minute tonight. Um, which is interesting because again, the way that it was marketed to us media and fans is that she is going to be the remedy for the Storm shooting problems, three-point shooting problems. And so I just thought it was interesting how little minutes she played. Zaya Cook, we've talked about she only had 8 minutes today, 2 points in 8 minutes. But again, interesting that we really didn't see them again after the first quarter. And that it was kind of like, okay, we tried it out really quickly. We found the group we're going with that. And it already kind of feels like last season where when you have that one unit, that's the unit you're going with a little
Mm.
bit.
And I mean, if we bring Christian in here, just seeing Gabby Williams with 37 minutes, Skylar Diggins with 37 minutes. Our friend Christian here is the one who I'm sure it didn't change. I'm sure it might have stayed the same or gone up. Skylar Diggins has her highest usage rate of her career. Like that was one of my things in a preview I was doing was wondering about the guard play, and I kind of don't count Gabby because they're playing her. She's a forward. She's always going to be a forward, right? And I was like, okay, that trio, Erica Wheeler. Oops, didn't mean to use that finger first. Lexi Brown and Zaya Cook. What are we going to get? And I think Rowan in Slack in our Storm Slack. I'm juggling a lot of things here. Again, Lumen Field is right there. I'm kind of half whispering because we're in the press box here. I gotta be here in like 10 hours for the Sounders game.
He's giving y'all that
Lexi
smooth
Brown,
voice, man.
uh, you know, I wish I had like a Barry White voice. Can you imagine? Um, but Lexi Brown checks in. Yeah, I didn't realize that because I was, handling different. I didn't realize she had 1 minute in this game. The minutes I saw from Erica Wheeler looked solid, but again, I didn't see too much. That's why you guys are here. Christian, since you're here, we'll get you. I won't leave you on the bench like a designated hitter. We'll get you in here going. What did you see from this one? Just I'm sure it was nice to see Seattle bounce back, but I think maybe the biggest thing we're taking away is analyzing how Seattle's using their roster at this point.
First of all, I know this is a Seattle Storm show, but some of my favorite hitters of all time are designated hitters, okay? Just because you have a glove does not mean you're not a full player, okay? You count, you matter. But yeah, you look at the roster, you look at the minutes, and I don't think it's great that Skylar has the highest usage rate of her career, that she's playing so many games, 35 plus straight. Like it's different for a Kelsey Plum type of guard who can handle an entire load of being the number one option without, substantial help, Like she doesn't have a Nneka Ogwumike, she doesn't have a Gabby Williams. So but I guess that's kind of the problem so far. Like it's really only been Skylar and Nneka. I think at one point in the game they had scored 36 of the team's 60 at some point, or it was somewhere around that point. Basically, almost more than half of the team's offense at that point. But it's like, okay, the offense was struggling for a good portion of the game for players not named Diggins or Ogwumike, but also you go into the fourth quarter after AT and Satu combined for 30 through three quarters, then they go 0 for 7 with 1 point, and it's like this team was built through interior play and strong defense, right? That was the staple, that was the culture last year. So you would hope that that's kind of translated this year so far, and it is. It's only the third game. Not even really just Seattle. I feel like across the W in general, people are just jumping to too many conclusions. Like looking at this Seattle team, they're not gonna shoot you. They're not gonna shoot the lights out, right? But they're gonna do exactly what they did last year. They get you on the inside. They're gonna turn you over. They're gonna get those points, and that defensive pressure is just gonna be so overwhelming. You're just gonna give in, like Phoenix did today. So, and like this is a great Phoenix team. Like I know there was questions coming to the season, like, okay, besides AT and Satu, what else you gonna have? And it's like, well, that's really all they've had, but they have great role players next to them to kind of execute. Catherine Westbeld. There's other players. I think they have like four undrafted rookies, which is crazy. Kai will be back eventually, but they were 2-0. They were one of the last three teams left undefeated. So, I mean, this is a win under Seattle's belt. This is also the second straight game where they've had more than three players notch three field goals. So, hey, that's great. That's great news. Um, I guess
Baby steps.
baby steps, right? Baby steps. I guess my only thing is um the guard play. Like again, Lexi Brown only having 1 minute. Um, Dom has only had 6 minutes in her last two games. Um, I'm not sure what to do with that. Again, we're only three games in, but if this is how this is gonna go, I'm not highly optimistic on the long run. I'm sorry, I'm just not. This isn't the looks of a team that can go all the way if this is what you're bringing to the table. When you look at other teams that have had some more superior offseasons, and again, I feel like it's kind of hard to, be so cruel or harsh or whatever some people think because again, they are missing Katie Lou Sampson. They are missing, Jordan Horson, which there's been so many moments in these last three games. I was like, man, Jordan would be great right there for that steal, finding Ezzy on the low block. I think that's another thing that's kind of struggling with while we haven't really seen the front court rotation pop up like we think it would, the interior passing just isn't there. If it's not Skylar, if it's not Nneka, no one is really actively getting the ball into the paint. And it's like, well, if that's how you're going to score your offense. I mean, you would think interior touches would, be paramount, but we haven't really seen that. I think I've seen more perimeter play, try to amplify what the bigs are doing on the inside. And it's like you just don't have that talent level. Erica's great for what you're asking her to do, but when you bring in other guards that can are a more consistent scoring threat, puts you at a crossroads.
I'm just gonna give you the big sigh and you can react with that. Yeah, man, I don't know. It is interesting. Like, I can understand what Quinn is saying with going back to Dominique getting acclimated and, not being totally, stuck in with the systems. I can get that for sure. But, and I know I'm not WNBA, I'm not a coach, right? There's a reason I sit here and I talk my mouth off. Um, I think Dominique has the ability to just go out there and let the thing rip. I really do. I think, with Christian brought up word smooth again with Dominique on the little jumper she had, right? I just really I do. And then I know Rowan brought up her defensive play on AT. AT is a different breed, mind you. So I don't know how much that would have lasted, but I don't know. Just yeah, I have thoughts on those minutes. And yeah,
Hey,
someone we
Oh,
hold on. I'm looking at the box score. Oh my
mm,
God. I haven't looked at like the
y-
final box score since after the presser, but the minute disparity, Jesus Christ.
yeah.
yeah, like that's gonna be the talking point, I feel like, for this team until we see some semblance of normality, of balance. You said, "Oh my God," looking at the box score. I said
I'm
that a few times looking at this box score because you shoot 27.8% from three.
I mean, I don't want to be a box score watcher, but this is kind of hard. Okay, you have four players that play more than 20 minutes. Erica at 22 is the lowest. Skylar and Gabby at the highest is 37. Nneka at 35. Ezzy at 32. And then no one else plays more than 13.
I mean,
Like,
I
go
think,
ahead.
we never like, I mean, the things that we never like to talk about, injuries and age in a like negative way, but it's important. And I think what you're saying is like, you have players like Nneka and Skylar who are scoring 24 points. They're playing 37, 35 plus minutes. And it's like that worked today. That looked good today. And I think we saw the same thing happen last season where it's like if you don't develop your bench at the beginning, if you're relying on these players that are coming out of the gate really, really hot, like starting the season, really healthy, playing, then as the season starts to get further down the line and they start to lose steam, then you're like, well, I'm going to turn to my bench. But if you haven't played your bench the whole time, so I think it's hard when you have your stars as Nneka and Skylar who, you know, are on the older side. They're still playing very well for, how long they have been in the league, but I think it is something to keep in mind. I was going to say another person we have not talked about yet is Lee Yuru. She had 7 minutes. I know. We always love to talk about her. I wrote down in my notes that I feel like she is a really quietly disruptive defender. I would have to look at the film again, but when she was in the game, it felt like there were so many Phoenix turnovers that maybe weren't her hitting the ball necessarily, like grabbing, stealing the ball necessarily, but she just seemed to really throw Kalani Brown off a little bit, and it just kept being some miscues from Phoenix. And I thought she did really well in Seattle's defensive possessions. And yeah, just had to give her that shout out. I can't remember what else I was gonna say, but
Well, to add on to that, in her only 7 minutes, she had the second highest plus minus, I think, at 11 in the game. So, and I saw a lot of the minutes she had matched up, it was mostly against Kalani Brown. Kalani Brown is one of the strongest players in the league at 6'7", one of the favorite players in the league at 6'7". But I will say this. Leroux is deceptively fast. The footwork, she'll get in front of you in a heartbeat. And she doesn't really have to. She's kind of like Ezzy and Nneka in a way. They don't have to get the block, but that just sheer size, the arm span, like I mean, arm span. Yeah, I think that's the word, right? That
Wingspan?
wingspan. Yeah, wingspan. Now I want wings. Thanks, Rowan. Appreciate you. But yeah, she doesn't really have to get the block, but I need to see more. And I think after that moving screen, coach kind of pulled the plug. And you hear Dick Van on the broadcast, kind of like, oh, Coach bent over, and she just couldn't believe it. I'm just like, well, I mean, it happens. But at the same time, yeah, you may have other players that can fit that position, but at some point, Lee Yu is going to have to play some, considerable minutes in the game. Is she going to be ready? I don't know. But like there was some such as last year where I mean I hate to reminisce, but Jordan Holmes would come into the game and she gave you 10 points in 12 minutes and 5 rebounds and 2 assists and 2 steals, and it's like, well, why doesn't she play more? And it's like, well, gee, I wish I knew. I couldn't tell you. So yeah, it's early, but some of these that's what I was trying to ask Coach during the pressure. Some of these characteristics, it's like, what do you see as building blocks? Because the ones that we're seeing so far, they're not really there yet.
I also think, sorry, I'm looking at all my notes now. I don't know why I didn't do this when I said something first, but one thing I thought was interesting is I remember we talked, when Zaya Cook got that last roster spot, over Serena Sundell. We were talking about how in training camp we saw her really being a slasher, and that we were calling her, what were we saying? Something about, jewel level slashing, but that's what, Noe was wanting from her. And one thing I was really impressed with in Erica Wheeler's minutes, and again, I'd have to go back and look. But I'm not sure if it really translated to actually points. She had 6 points, but I really enjoyed watching her create her own shot, which is something that I feel like I don't expect as much. I think of her as a little bit more of a like a distributor, a bit more of a point guard. But again, not sure if that actually translated to makes. I can't really remember, but I did notice, her driving to the basket and making her own shot. And if she can do that and also distribute effectively and have it translate, 6 points, not too shabby. So, 6 points in 22 minutes and doing a lot defensively. Like I kind of think that again, we ask what was Zaya Cook, what was the role that Zaya Cook was filling. If it is a slasher, Erica Wheeler can also maybe do that if that's, I just thought it was interesting.
The problem I feel like, I know Christian got something, so I'll make this quick. But the problem I feel like with some of these is we won't know. Like we have fans who are asking us is like some of this we just straight up can't ask. Like there are some things you cannot say. Like someone was like, how are they paying Alicia Clark this amount? Like insert her salary, and like I'm like I can't, like I'm not gonna show this credential I have, but like it's like gone. There's just some things you can't ask. You got to be smart about it when you do our job. And not to poke it, but we haven't really been picked in the last few games to ask questions. So yeah, no, yeah, you wonder about some of these things. Anyway, Christian had something to say.
Yeah, it's when you think about Erica Wheeler and her game tonight. Listen, I know she was 2 for 9, but out of those 7 misses, at least four of those 7 were easy bunnies she normally gets. It was just kind of tough finishes. So, I can see that. I feel like I'm talking myself into it, but I'm really not. Like, she had some great looks. Um, Someone has to take them, man. At this point, someone has to fucking take them, other than Skylar and Nneka. If it's Erica Wheeler, fine. If it's Gabby stepping up, fine. If it's Ezzy, fine. You know, like I was saying in our last post-game report with Charles, that I'm not as tough as I've seen a lot of people be with Ezzy, whether it be fans or media, as far as her performance. I mean, she just had one of the longest campaigns of basketball in her career. Think about it. She had a 2024 season with the Storm, stopped Olympics, had a pretty lengthy run, came back, finished the season, went into the playoffs for that first round run, and then went straight over to Praha in less than 2 months, and had was a EuroLeague champion played the entire season. Got to the Seattle just a little bit late. You see, think about all these things that go into that, and it's like, well, I mean, she didn't play in the preseason, so these are things she's playing back into Ezzy shape. You know, this is different. Um, and like Coach said, I don't think this is a bailout, but Ezzy does a lot of things that we've already known that she can do that impact the game that don't show up on the stat sheet. The deflections, the 50-50 balls, just flashing her size in the lane. Like these things matter. It makes up of a defensive presence, and that's kind of why they were so great in that fourth quarter. I'm thinking like, okay, yeah, everybody keeps mentioning, okay, they only up by 5. I'm like, yeah, but if they're disrupting every single possession down the other side of the court for Phoenix, does it really matter? I mean, at this point, does it really matter? I don't think it did at least in that game.
I have one more thing to say. I I was also going to say you mentioned Gabby very quickly, and kind of like we're saying with Ezzy, we know that Gabby Williams is, we already know who Gabby Williams is. We don't have to talk about it as long as maybe a Leah Rue or someone that maybe people don't know as much about. But I do think it's really interesting looking at the box score. Gabby Williams, she didn't. Oh, actually, yes, she did. Yes, she did. She attempted the most three pointers and successfully made the most three pointers. What? Oh, sorry. I thought you were trying to say that I was wrong about my stats. Attempted and made the most three pointers on the team today. And I just think it's so interesting how, whatever Noelle needs her to be, she steps up to it. If they, last season they needed rebounding, she rebounded. They needed, they need steals, they need defense. And I just think again, we've talked so much about this three-point shooting. We talked about is Nneka Ogwumike going to be the three-point shooter this year again? Of course, before before free agency in the offseason, we were like, they need some more three-point production. And I just think it's interesting to see Gabby is the one who is stepping up. It's not a problem, but we again ask the question of, was this the plan or was this not the plan? And I don't think it was the plan, but you're lucky to have someone like Gabby Williams who can just decide that she's going to be a three-point shooter one night and then decide she's going to be a shot blocker another night. It's again, we know how big of a player she is, but it's really interesting to look at that.
The points disparity. Oh God, this is disgusting. Like, take away the fact that Seattle won. If I told you that they had two scores that scored 24 and only one other person scored double digits, you would not think they won that game. You know. But then again, I mean, Satu and AT, they just 0 for 7, man. That was crazy. That was probably one of the best defensive performances I've seen the Storm unit run in a while. And I guess that's why I won't ever really be too critical when it comes to the defense. I mean, when you have Ezzy in the paint, you have Nneka in the paint. I mean, you've already got two of the best forwards in the league right there. You just play through them on both sides of the floor. That was one of the main reasons why they were so great last year. And I don't know why that's not the case this year. Like, it's not about necessarily, Ezzy being an aggressive Ezzy. It's about the shots being there. And they really aren't, at least in the flow in the game. But again, it's game 3. It's still May. So I don't think we'll be having these conversations come late June, early July. Hopefully not, because at that point we're like 10, 15, almost 20 games into the season. So we'll see.
Yeah, it gets pretty interesting. I mean, because we've got this game today. It is Friday. My brain kept telling me it was a Saturday. These guys come back and they play Sunday against the Aces, which, Seattle and Vegas have had some pretty intense battles over the last few years. And then you add the, lighter fluid that is Jewel Lloyd's return. Like, it's things are going to get pretty real here. And I think it's just for me, some of these games, talking it through with you guys, whether it's doing the show or, um, you know, uh, texting the Slack about it, is just like forming different opinions. Like coming into this season, again, I had utmost confidence in Skylar Diggins and Nneka Ogwumike to be who they were in the second half of that year. I really did. They're doing that. It is, as I was thinking in this offseason, going to be on the surrounding cast. Like, we love Ezzy Magbagor. What is the next? I think I even asked Coach Quinn, I think ahead of the Connecticut game, what is the next step for Ezzy Magbagor? because we've seen her take steps. As Christian mentioned, we got some leash, and I was going to ask about Ezzy, but then you talked about it with Gabby. I mean, again, I think I've said it a few post games with Christian. And Rowan said it. She's gonna hit a few threes one night, and she's gonna go quiet the next. It's just interesting seeing this all kind of it's like you're watching, someone grow. It's like seeing the different traits develop. You're seeing this team develop in front of your eyes. Um, I think the biggest question to me is going to be the minutes and how they're handled. Like that's the biggest thing I'm taking away from these games. So,
Is it handled
um,
though? I mean, I guess we should go. I mean, I guess the Storm should go ahead and go get Kennedy Carter, right? 3 games to the season.
oh my God. Oop, did I
That's
show that?
that's a dream. That's a dream pairing, man. Love to see
Um,
that.
I don't know what kind of nightmare.
I mean, you can't even sign anyone right now, so I don't understand what's the point.
Oh, that too. Yeah, what are you doing to when I go into WNBA 2K and I put the salary cap up? Yeah. Um, I don't know. Is there anything you guys want to wrap up here? Whether it's Rowan showing off the keychain Doppler to make us jealous. See,
Where's mine at? Hey, that's actually pretty big.
I also have, is this like a little like haul, storm haul, from the
unboxing.
game? N-
Oh yeah.
Rally towel. Yeah.
I
Anyway,
don't I don't understand.
Can we talk about that real quick? Nothing but
the
Yes,
nothing but the storm.
that'll
I
be
would
our
love to talk
closer.
about that. I would love to
what
talk
I
was
about
don't
that.
last
understand.
year's? I forgot. What was last year's? Storm
The new
Unite.
storm.
The new Storm. That
The
was
new
perfect.
storm.
That was perfect.
Yeah.
I think it
See,
still applies to this year.
my favorite one, this was probably from like 20, oh my God, it had to be like 11 or 10, was the perfect storm. That one
Yeah,
was
yeah.
Ooh.
fun.
I remember
I
that.
still have a shirt that says that on it. But my last thing, I know I just all this is coming back to me. The last thing about rotations
That's
that
why
I
we
thought
do the
was
show.
interesting, exactly. Then we just get to gab and I just keep gabbing. I think the last thing that I thought was interesting that again, this isn't a criticism, it's just an interesting thing to look at and see when this ends, I guess, is it felt there were times that there was a group on the court and they all knew kind of what they were supposed to do. Let's say if you are like, okay, I know that, this is what Noe wants to do if I'm the two. But sometimes they were like, it kind of felt like they didn't know what exact position they were in that unit. And so it kind of felt like at one point, like Nneka and Ezzy, that's a Nneka and Ezzy were kind of doing the same thing. They were both coming in to screen, and it was kind of like, oh, so you both think that you're playing the same position right now. So again, it's the third game of the season. It makes sense that stuff like this is happening, but I'm really interested to see with all these rotations and with trying so many people out. Again, we've talked about the versatility you can't really go through this roster and say this person is only a one, plays only the one, plays only the two, plays only the four. Everyone can kind of play a little bit of everything, and I think that at this point it's a little confusing to people. But I think that when they start to figure it out, I'm just interested to see how long that's going to take for people to understand. I also noticed a lot of like, at least in the first half, it would be kind of like four people would be on one side, like an overload, and then there would be one person on the other side, and it seemed like there was some things that just got lost in translation that seemed to be figured out by the end. But I'm just interested to see when that is going to kind of start coming together, that people are going to understand what position they're playing when they're with a specific unit.
And now that you say that, I think that's what made me think about the first quarter, where they went 8 deep, and I don't think she played. Noe played 8 players in a different quarter. Second quarter, she went 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 deep. If you count the 30 seconds, or the 90 seconds that Lee played, and then the first quarter was pretty much, you bring in 3 different reserves, and you're wondering like, what are you trying to see here? What are you trying to, garner for the rest of the game? At least maybe take out of this game going into the rest of the season, or just, against Phoenix in general. Yeah, I'm not really sure of the rotations yet. I mean, me personally, I don't think Alicia Clark should be starting still. Um, just don't really think that's what you need to start a game with right now. She also hasn't really been terribly consistent. So, at some point at this season, nobody's going to have to go to the three-guard lineup. She's going to have to commit to it. Because it's going to be the only way that you can get the most out of Nneka and Ezzy. And especially if you want to bring Dom into the fold, you have to have reliable shooting and reliable spacing, especially guards that can put the ball in the rim. Zaya is that. I mean, can I see Zaya starting? I would like to see that, honestly, because she's probably the most talented guard on the roster outside of Skylar. Um, and that's not to shade Erica or anything like that. It's just that at this point in Zaya's career, she's a bucket getter, and she's a defensive stopper. I don't understand why she's not getting the minutes she needs to be able to be that for the Storm consistently. But again, it's game 3 of the season, wax poetically about change and, grace and all these other things. But you have to start giving these bench players considerable minutes to be able to get you where you want to be. Because this was the same exact issue of why they faltered last year. 17 and 8 in the first half, 8 and 7 in the second half, because the bench was not ready, especially after Jordan was had that uncomfortableness to start the second half of the season after the Olympics. Gabby is coming off of a long Olympic break where she's still kind of tired. I mean, Skylar was the one that was carrying the team almost the entire second half. So, gonna be interesting to see how those developments play in the 2025.
That is that. And talking about that, like that's what I was thinking as you went through that, Christian, was like, hey, if I'm a bench player and I'm gonna be a contributor throughout the course of the year, if I'm a Zayat Cook, I want my in-game rhythm earlier the better. So that, there's a game, I don't know, you're playing someone in July, you know, God forbid something happens to one of your starters. They say, hey, Zaya, you're in. And it's like, I would rather her be in more of a flow, than just, hey, you've played a smattering of less than 10 minutes over the course of the past month. Let's go. Like, so that's it. That and me complaining about teams and their hashtags. This world is so creative now, despite the amount of AI that's being used. Come up with something smart. Like half the time I only care about the hashtag if it's got the little hash flag. Like I just like the little picture. That I don't understand it. I mean, the new Storm would still fit this team, considering that you've gone from, the Lauren Jackson Sue Bird era to the Sue Bird and Brianna Stewart era to the Brianna Stewart and Jewel to the Jewel Lloyd era to now Skylar Diggins and Nneka Ogwumike. Like anyway. Yeah, man. So Sunday, I should actually be at Climate Pledge for that one. After I said I was gonna do it on the last show and on the tweets. That is not a basketball court, in case you can tell. Where are the hoops? Where? I don't know. Yeah, Rowan will continue to flex.
No.
Where's Nika
They're
Mule?
the hoops.
Yeah. So until we see Sunday, oh man, Las Vegas. We'll see
Jewel
how they
Lloyd
deal
game
with Asia
winner.
Wilson. Oh God, don't.
Yeah, Jewel's on her revenge game. On Sunday, she's going to be on her revenge game coming back to Seattle, and she just hit a game winner. So do
I
with that
don't
what you will.
gamble. I don't gamble. But if you're looking to make some money, I would take 30 over. Because who's gonna guard her?
Yeah,
Skylar
yeah.
can't Skylar can't guard her for 40 minutes. So we'll see.
And there's all these like players with like the different accessories. We've got masked gold Mamba right now. So, all right, man.
Oh gosh, the mask too. I didn't even think about that. The Storm
Hmm.
fans know the mask
Yeah.
very well.
Wow. Yeah, that's a throwback. All right, man. Till we see you next time, take care of yourselves. Be well. Do whatever you can to make today a great day. And steal Rowan's Doppler plush.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, where are you going to watch all the away games for Seattle Reign FC this year?
Away games. Well, since Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, I was thinking of coming here if that's okay with you.
I think that makes a lot of sense. See y'all here.